Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Family. And today we'll be talking about the Matrix trilogy. And this is one of our first reviews for an older movie. And if you ever want to see us review any other older movies, you can let us know in the comments. And I think the way we should probably structure this is talking about the first movie first and then the last two movies second, because I generally think there's a popular opinion that those are kind of two different types of movies. I knew all about The Matrix, and I'd seen it when I was younger. I had yet to rewatch it, and kind of with a more critical eye. So upon this rewatch, I really do think this movie's fantastic. I think it's very impressive for its time, and I think it's probably one of the five most influential movies of the modern era of film, which is to me the 1970s to now. And it is a film that you can still see, like so many films, be influenced by, and you can feel its kind of just its identity and like a little piece of it in almost every movie nowadays.
I agree, definitely agree. It was something revolutionary when it happened. I remember seeing it in the theaters, and it kind of renewed my interest in film because things were kind of, I don't want to say they were sterile, but it was like you had seen everything before. And then here comes The Matrix, and there's so many things that you hadn't seen, but also just the treatment of the colors and everything like that. But we'll go more into it. But I totally agree with what you were just saying.
Yeah, I think before we just talk about story level, we should talk about the fact that on a technical level, this is one of the most impressive films ever made. The fact that the effects look so good today when there are so few 90s movies that have effects that hold up, and the fact that so many of the effects are being trying to be recreated, and a lot of the times it fails. And there's so many just technical achievements, even small ones that people don't know about. It really is kind of interesting to look at some of the making of this movie and the process to which how they got some of these shots. Like, obviously they have the very famous bullet time, or when Smith and Neo are fighting in the train station and they kind of jump at each other with the guns. Those shots at the time seemed almost impossible, and the Wachowskis and their whole team really, pushed technology for film forward with this movie. And even the color scheme of this movie, there were very few films before that had an actual like digital color palette. And each scene in this movie, some in the real world take place, they have the kind of neo blue kind of look to them, and then in the Matrix always has a green tint to it. And those type of things when you see in a movie nowadays, it's kind of normal because all movies have that, but those weren't really very present before in terms of digital kind of recreation of color. And so that's something that's very interesting as well.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I remember seeing the bullet time for the first time in the theaters, and just the gasp from the audience. That's when like you've seen something that no one else has kind of seen before. I know that there was a commercial that the bullet time had been shown, but no one saw that commercial. So this was kind of the first time that like people really got to see the bullet time, and it was done so effortlessly and so perfect that I really love this movie. We'll go into the story, but I really love the fact that they pulled this off. It was almost like a live action anime movie. That's what they've even said that. You want to talk a little about the story? When you think of The Matrix, what are you thinking about?
I think it's one of those movies that, like, even multiple watches, you'll still sometimes be confused. I don't even know if the Wachowskis fully knew what the story was, but I think there's something kind of appealing about not knowing everything. Because in movies, especially nowadays, people want to know everything.
Yeah.
They want to know the characters and the plot and what's going to happen. But The Matrix kind of leaves you to question things. And sometimes it gives you questions that it seems like it's setting up for an answer and doesn't even answer it, which is a little weird, but I think it doesn't work with a lot of movies, but it worked for me in the sense of that the trilogy was more about asking questions and pose questions about reality and what is existence and what's your purpose. That was a big, kind of a whole debate between the Agent Smiths of the Matrix and then the people, who are more like Morpheus. So for me, it's very interesting, and the idea of free will, choice, the fight against the machines. It reminds me a little bit, I think this movie was definitely influenced by Terminator, which had this whole idea about AI taking over with Skynet. And then I think this movie also heavily influenced other movies like Inception, because I know, Christopher Nolan obviously wrote the Inception script over like 8 or something years. And I think movies like this really inspired filmmakers to go for deeper and kind of more intellectual movies. And I don't think there's many movies that can be both commercially accessible but also able to be critically analyzed as well as this movie. And so I think that's something that is extremely impressive. And you can watch this movie just for enjoyment if you want, but if you want to delve deeper into the whole ideas in it, that's also something you can definitely do. And that's something I appreciate about the trilogy, and especially the first one.
So, yeah, I think Matrix for me is one of my top something. I don't know. I don't want to say top 10 because there's a lot of great movies out there, but it's up there. Like, it really is for me because I can watch this many times and still get something out of it. The acting is on point in terms of every character, brings something. And there's, that love story between Neo and Trinity, that is kind of like, is he the one because I'm supposed to fall in love with the person that's the one? And it's very interesting. But what did you think about pretty much, do you want to go into the second and third real quick? Or
I was going to say one last thing is that the action of this trilogy as well, that's not even something we talk. The effects obviously are incredible, but the effects won't work if the action doesn't work. And the action in all of the movies absolutely works. Even if you have your problems with the second two, like a lot of people does. The action, it seriously does hold up. And like when you watch those types of fight scenes, you can see in so many of the films of the 2000s them trying to induct a new kung fu style. And a lot of Asian cinema had more martial arts in them, but a lot of American films just didn't have that. And if they did, most of them weren't successful. So this really brought a new kind of style to Hollywood in terms of action. The wire fu and that kind of like unrealistic fighting. But they also made people want to push kung fu in movies and kind of these like really tight and fast choreographed fight sequences. So you can really see, and even in costume design, the movies with all their black outfits, every movie in the 2000s, at least in the early 2000s, they have these black outfits either made of like leather or latex or something, something tight. So, I think it's really interesting, and it's also really, I think, a testament to the movie's quality that you can see a piece of influence in almost every domain of filmmaking just because of how, great The Matrix was. And so, I think now we should talk about the second two.
Yeah.
So I walked into the second two knowing what people, generally say that they're not even close to the first one and they're bad. And, I just walked into it excited though, because I watched the first one and I was like, wow, blown away. And the second one, honestly, I thought was a pretty good movie. I think the second one has its weird scenes. The rave scene is about 4 minutes, like too long. It seemed like it would never stop. But, there are scenes in this movie that aren't action that I think are good. I love when he's talking to the creator in the world that Morpheus shows him in the first one, and I like some of the smaller conversations in this movie. Personally, I don't like the romance between Trinity and Neo. I never really understood it, and I never really thought it matched the movies. But I do get for the story, it was kind of necessary. But I think the action sequences in the movie are almost as good as the first one, and they really are fantastic. The highway sequence, they built like a miniature highway for this, and then the kung fu sequence with all the weapons. Those type of fight scenes aren't easy to pull off, and to be that like long and lengthy, around like 4 minutes, and still keep you engaged for every little piece of choreography. It truly is something special to watch if you like action movies.
Yeah, I definitely think the Matrix started something where, as an actor, the rehearsal, almost doing your own fight scenes in a way, because before that it was like some stunt double or like quick shots or something else. But Keanu really, and all the rest, Lawrence Fishburne and Carrie-Anne Moss and Hugo, they all brought like a determination in terms of learning the choreography and being there. And it's like, for me, it's like, I don't want to say Matrix is an incredible movie, but the sequel for me, I like the sequel. I really do. The brawl, the Broly brawl or whatever, that was one thing, because I hate bad CG. And so that was one of the things that kind of bothered me about the movie, about the second one. Just with all the Agent Smiths and the bowling, and all. It's just, but I know what they were trying to push the envelope, and it's like almost at the
hard
threshold.
To top yourself at that.
You're at the threshold of CGI, and I can tell some things just don't fit. But saying that, I was engaged with the story. I liked the idea of Trinity and Neo in the first one only because it was a prophecy I like prophecies, like, oh, is this really the prophecy? Is he really the one? But then they got stuck basically making it like about him and her and the love story. And so I kind of understand what you're saying about that.
Yeah, and then for me, the third one, it just doesn't spend enough time in the Matrix. I mean, I really think the thing that was interesting about the Matrix is that there was always, so much going on in the Matrix, and it was such a cool idea that you can download, things into the people's heads, and you can bring up guns if you need them. But something that, for me was very interesting was that it was all going on there, whether there's impending danger in the real world, and the impending danger came, and I was excited to see that, even though I don't think it was executed well. The fight, in the real world, just for me, just didn't land. More than that, it felt like they dwelled on it a little too much, and they should have spent more time in the Matrix. And the whole idea of Keanu, kind of being able to fight blind, even though in the real world he's just supposed to be another guy, and now he's becoming the chosen one in real life, and then he kind of just becomes God in the Matrix. I mean, I didn't really understand that. It was a little weird.
Too.
Yeah, it just felt like
I don't think. Yeah,
I don't
think
know
a lot of people
satisfying.
did. That's the hard thing about the Matrix too, and I know that the directors said that they purposely they're not answering questions because they want your own interpretation. But at some point, I mean, when you're lost, it's like a teacher. If the students are lost, they're lost. You have to kind of guide them a little, give them little breadcrumbs.
I think you can get a movie like Inception, which a lot of people still question that ending. And that is a movie that people are interested in because they think it's interesting to find which ending is more correct. But with The Matrix, it's almost like they don't even have an idea of what's going on because it's just a little too jumbled. And I do think the only part I really did like in the third one was the fight between Smith and Neo. That was pretty cool, even though Kung Fu was gone, it just became superheroes. But still, it was a cool way to kind of end their little rivalry. And I do think Agent Smith is a great villain for this trilogy.
Yeah.
And Hugo even plays him so well.
Incredibly well.
Yeah, but I just think overall the trilogy kind of fails at wrapping itself up. But for me, the first one is truly something special, and the second one, especially if you're just kind of watching with a little less analysis than the first one, you will be entertained. And these movies do have a lot of things about philosophy and existence, and they even get religious at points. They reference literature, and so they're very deep movies if you want to make them deep. But they're also movies you can just enjoy. So yeah, overall, I think this is a really good trilogy. I don't know. I'd probably say it's a top 10 trilogy of all time. I think the first Matrix is truly one of the most groundbreaking movies made in the modern film era, and overall, I just think this is a very good trilogy.
So if you were recommending this to someone, would you say see the whole trilogy? Well, obviously they have to because it kind of answers. But
I mean, the first one, a lot of people say it has a good enough ending to just kind of stop the story there, which I kind of agree with. But if you're a movie fan, I think you should watch the whole trilogy. But for me, the first one does have kind of a special quality that the other two just don't have.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think I put it kind of where you put it in that way. I mean, the first one's literally to me a masterpiece. I hate to use that word, but in terms of the sci-fi, in terms of the real live anime, that some of the things that they kind of borrowed or stole, depending on who you ask. But it was the first time you've seen it, but it holds up till even today. And so for me, I would recommend seeing the second and third because if you've already invested in the first one, then you might as well see the second and third one to see the finish.
Yeah, and we made this video because they were on Netflix and they're just now leaving. So unfortunately, they are off of Netflix. But they might be somewhere else. But yeah, overall, it's a really good trilogy, and I recommend it. And thanks for watching, and comment, subscribe.
There you go. Adios.